Hello, everyone. Because I'm coming onto your screen, it's Wednesday at 2 o'clock. It's time for another edition of Fast Facts and Features with me, the brand ambassador for ethical flooring. We're in part 3, Kevin. Part 3.
All right.
Of this acoustical ratings conversation about the importance of it. And before I get in, I do have the Durason data sheet for on plywood substrate that you're going to take apart and help me. But what are some of the things that you can do to a plywood substrate where maybe you don't need to use an acoustical, that there's stuff you can do so your hardwood floor doesn't squeak?
So your hardwood floor doesn't squeak. Very good. Yeah, obviously you don't want to put a new floor over a squeaky subfloor if you can help it. So that's where the subfloor preparation and taking your time before you just start slapping down a floor comes in, is really important. So obviously re-screwing, you know, a lot of homes when they're built with where the subfloor is, a plywood subfloor has been nailed into the joist. Your power nailer goes real quick. We've probably all heard it going pop, 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 pop as it go along.
Oh, my internet is crazy. I don't know if it's your internet or mine. Oh, no, we're good. I think we're good now.
All right. So okay. Yeah, the you know, the pneumatic power nailer works real good and it goes fast and it's fairly inexpensive. And problem is, you know, obviously wood frame houses, they change over time. They shrink as they dry out from when they're new. And, you know, with the changes, humidity and temperature, they're always moving, always flexing. And eventually over time, those nails that are holding our plywood subfloor are probably going to come loose. So oftentimes we pull up carpet and we're changing it for, let's say, a hardwood floor. You know, we'll go around and re-screw the plywood wherever it's necessary and do what we can. Now, if it still squeaks after that, which can happen, you know, then you're getting sometimes more into actual carpentry work. Where you should be working with a licensed carpenter at that point, just to make sure that everything is done properly. But you know, 9.5 times out of 10, just rescrewing the plywood will do the trick.
Oh, you know what? Our internet is kind of wacky, and I'm at my office today, so I hope I just took my earbuds out. Maybe that's taking up some bandwidth on my computer. I don't know. This topic is far too important. So I love the fact that you said you're screwing it down, because if you get a hardwood floor installation guy and goes, oh, I'm just going to come back and nail it again, you know, maybe use today's methodology of nails versus when the house was built, you're still going to end up with the same problem in the end, correct?
Yeah, I think so. So it's, you know, screwing is definitely going to be a permanent solution. And you know, there's these cool tools which are automatic screw guns where the installer can actually stand up and it's like a belt fed screw system. So it's they just zoom, zoom, zoom. So you can quite quickly and efficiently go in and do a fairly large area. You know, and once it's screwed, it's permanently staying down. That's not going to cause you any more issues. So yeah, it's just one of those things, again, making sure that the canvas that the artist, the hardwood floor installer is working on is as impeccable as it can be before we even think about putting that first piece of wood down. And you know, that's what we talk about all day here at Ethical Flooring, and it's definitely best practices for putting in a new floor.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen now. And I have up, I did bring it up, didn't bring it out. Here we go. Many things going on my computer right now. So this is like what we went over last week, the acoustical report, and this is the sound. So look, it was done by an independent lab, which is great. So Durason action this. An impact sound transmission task classification of engineered hardwood floor. So I'm just going to pause there for a second, Kevin. Do the majority of floors you put in these days engineered or solid?
Oh, I'd say 99% plus are engineered wood floor.
Okay.
Maybe 1 or 2 a year might actually be a solid, which is, you know, depending on what part of the country you're in, that may or may not surprise you. But the west coast of BC, and especially down in Vancouver, we are an engineered market for sure.
Okay. So, and then our controls, there's over gypsum concrete, over a Duramat on wood joist with a ceiling assembly. Can you just recap, what does that word mean, ceiling assembly? What is that all about?
Yeah, I had a quick look at this before here, and floor joist ceiling assembly. So this is just mimicking a standard home. You know, you have floor joists, you have plywood subfloor, and then they've, I believe this is the same report I was looking at, then they have 1.5 inches of gypsum on top of that. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1.5 inch of thick gypsum concrete. So that would be typical as, say, if you had a radiant heated system, they would put the 1.5 inches of gypsum. You could also put that strictly as a sound barrier in especially in some high rises or low rises, they will do that.
Okay.
But oftentimes you'll see in a wood frame house, you wouldn't actually even have this gypsum at all. It would just be floor joists with the 5/8 plywood subfloor, and then we would be putting the floor on top of that. So yeah, so, and then you see below here, they have their joist spacing, and then they go up one, then they had insulation or batting into the cavities, which would be typical if you had a rental suite below you. I don't know if that's I don't know if that's standard building practice for just a residential detached home with no I'm assuming it would, but that's actually a really good question. So yeah, it seems like they have they've put in the floor joists underneath. They've stuck insulation in between the joists. And then another layer of gypsum drywall. So this is now on the underside. So let's say if you have a rental suite below, they've filled the floor joist spacing with insulation, then they've put up another sheet of drywall. So this would be a typical detached home or townhouse construction. So this is actually a real life scenario here, which is important.
And I think it's a big real life scenario here in Vancouver, the greater Vancouver area. There's so many homes that are built with the mortgage helper, as they call it, underneath, which is a rental suite, either, you know, over top or two side by side, and then the main living space is up top. So this is a great conversation to have with those people that are being new builds or retroing their house or renovating their house to make that basement suite. And then I see that they've got two different tests here. And with the Bear system and the test, we're just going to go down to this here, and you can kind of tell us what does this mean all down here.
Yeah, so that first graph you just scroll by there with the IIC of 50. I believe this is the actual sound rating without the underlay. So they're trying to do a base level or which is the proper way to do it. So what does the actual assembly itself offer? Because obviously it does. If you have 1.5 inches of concrete, you have plywood subfloor, you have insulation, batting, you know, in between the joists, and then you have another layer of drywall ceiling on the bottom side of those joists, that itself is going to provide a fair amount of sound absorption, obviously, right? So they're doing a baseline on that. And then if you scroll down to the next one.
Full installation here. Yeah,
so this is where they would have the floor covering. I think it's probably a hardwood floor. And then they have the 3.5 millimeter thick Durason underlay. And this is the IIC rating that it achieves of 58. So this is, again, a realistic number in a realistic and actually perfectly legitimate test scenario. This is typical of almost every new home build that we would personally see. And now you can see that IIC number is 58. And if anybody spent any time in this industry, they'll know that is low. But in fact, that's actually quite good for you know, for an actual reality situation in a wood frame home. Yeah.
And this is interesting here too, is they're also talking about the longevity of the test and talking about how humid the temperature in the home or the test environment, as well as the humidity in the environment, also plays into the sound or the IIC rating, because we all know that floors, when is wet, it swells and it might be feel a little bit more stable, but as soon as it dries out, that's where you get those kind of creaky noises. So this is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's a very, very well done test. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to stop sharing my screen right now. and come back. So this is like important information because those people are going out and they just go, oh, I just want hardwood floors. Like, just give me some hardwood floors. And there's so, pardon the expression, there's so much underneath knowledge and materials and things that you have to think about, whether you're in a concrete high rise, a wood frame building, because there's a lot of the new, like what is our standard now? We're allowed to go up six stories wood frame in some of the new developments. Well, that's going to have a little bit different rating or hardwood floor, or a lot of them come with carpet, but you want hardwood floor. And yeah, you got to go to the experts to, and I know Kevin, you love this kind of stuff. You love digging into the technical stuff in your industry.
Yeah, I'm nerdy in a not cool way. So it's good thing I'm married already, because I certainly wouldn't wow any women on a date with the kind of knowledge I have.
You know what though? A girl loves a smart man. Gotta let you know. Gotta let you know there, Kevin. And Tanya is very smart to be married.
She is indeed. She is indeed.
As well. So you know what? I think next week, oh my gosh, we're already in November, is I would love to talk about how engineered floor is constructed. I would love for if you can find in, maybe you've taken out, and I know when I was a project manager, I would take out that cheap stuff when somebody was putting in the good stuff. I'd always keep a little sample. If you can kind of find in this next week, kind of that low entry hardwood floor that I know you don't sell, if you might be able to find a sample, and a good quality engineered hardwood floor. Let's talk about the differences. And the word core void, let's talk about what a core void is, because it's all about sound when it comes to core voids and construction of engineered hardwood floor.
I would love to talk about that. That's one of my favorite things. Nothing like looking at a well-made engineered floor. It just makes my day. It's so beautiful.
So let's tune in next week, 2 o'clock. It's a show and tell kind of fast facts and features with me, the brand ambassador for ethical flooring. Thank you everybody for tuning in.
Thanks, Jeanette. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.